Welcome to our introductory video series about creating your own webinars. In this video, we'll explore managing and making changes to your webinar. Once you've initially set up your webinar, you can manage it and make changes to it. If you simply click on My Webinars here in the main menu, then click on Manage Webinar here, and that takes us back to the Manage Webinar screen, so you can edit any elements of it. You can edit the title of the script if you wish, and all the other details. And you can also edit the branding and themes, registration form, and so on. And you can also make changes here. These aren't selected by default, but email notification, and you see by default, webinar invitation, send in body of email. Send reminder 1 hour and 1 day before webinar. Send follow-up to attendees 1 day after webinar. Send follow-up to no-shows, none. So let's edit so we can make some changes. Webinar invitation. We create and email it to you. You forward it to people you want to come. You can get it sent in HTML or plain text. Let's preview the email, and this is how it looks. And as you can see, there's the title, description, when it is, and system requirements, and the link to sign up to the webinar. And that's the registration page. Okay, let's close that, and let's close this email preview. Okay, other emails to registrants. Do we want to send them in HTML or plain text version? Plain text is just text without formatting of any sort. HTML is like a web page within an email. So you can choose what type of email you want to send out there. Plain text can generally be read more widely, but HTML text you can do a lot more with, of course. You can include graphics, and it looks like a proper web page. So maybe you can try both and then preview them and see which one you might prefer. When do you want to send reminder emails to all participants? 1 hour before? I'd say that's a good idea. 1 day before? I'd say that's a good idea too. 1 week before? You could go with that or not as you choose. Send follow-up to your attendees. Provide your attendees with your company's contact information in case they have questions. If you're doing follow-up outside of GoToWebinar, if you capture their email details outside of GoToWebinar doing follow-up, then you probably don't need any follow-up here. You can manage that yourself. And that way, you have a lot more control. But if you want, you can send out an automated email here 1 hour, 1 day, or 1 week afterward, and it looks like this. Okay, that's it. Not much, so I'd suggest managing that yourself so you can actually turn that off. However, that said, if you do wish to use this, you can, of course, customize it here. You can customize the subject. You can't customize the first line, Dear Attendee First Name, but you can customize the body. So you can make changes there if you're going to use it, but I'll turn it off in this case. Send follow-up emails to no-shows. You could do this, or again, you could just send an email a day or two later to everyone who registered outside of GoToWebinar just using your email follow-up service or software. Just send out an email to everyone registering saying whatever you want to say. You can view the presentation again at this address for a limited time, or a special offer can be viewed at this page, or whatever you wish. As an alternative, if you just want to contact no-shows, obviously you'll have to do that through GoToWebinar, because that can't be done through normal email software, because there's no real way of knowing who attended and who didn't without going to GoToWebinar. So you could enable that and say, one day after, and here's what it says. Sorry you missed, and then the title of the webinar. And here you could say, for example, sorry you missed out, and for 1 week only, you'll be able to view it at this address, and then give them links to the replay. And then the special offer is here, for example. Let's turn that off, but it's another option. So let's save those changes. Okay, it updated those details. And you can also do polling and surveying. So if we edit polling first of all, use a poll to get feedback from the audience during the webinar. Create and edit up to 8 questions below. They include some sample question types here. How many webinars have you attended this year? Where are your customers located? Do you want your attendees to be answering polls during the webinar? If this is a sales presentation, it might not be such a good idea because it would be a distraction from the message. But perhaps for training, it may be useful. It's up to you. Do you want people to be asked questions during the webinar? And if you want to ask questions during the webinar, you can do single answer or multiple answers. So let's do single answer. Question. For example, going with a Microsoft Word training example, which version of Microsoft Word do you have? Answers: Word 97, Word 2000, and so on. Let's just create that. And okay, there's the question. And you can run a practice session to see how the polls appear. And you can order the questions by selecting them and choosing up or down to choose the order in which they appear. So let's save. Okay, webinar settings have been updated again. And lastly, a survey. Let's edit. Use a survey to get audience feedback after your webinar. And you can create and edit up to 8 questions again. If you go down to the bottom, you see that the options are Show after attendee exits webinar or include a link to the survey in a follow-up email. So you can show it immediately afterward or link to it in an email. If you really want people to answer it, you probably want to show it immediately afterward, when the webinar is still fresh in their minds. Alternatively, if you're sending them a follow-up an hour or a day later, then you can include the survey there if you so desire. For example, and actually they have some sample questions here. If you click the link, this webinar met my expectations, strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree. Please send me monthly product newsletter. Okay, how would you rate the contents of this webinar? Or, for example, we could go with, and actually you have more answer formats here. Single answer, multiple answer, scale of 1 to 5, open-ended short phrase, or open-ended essay or longer answer. So let's select essay, for example. Then, what would you have liked to see more of? And then a follow-up or related question. What was missing that you would have liked included? Then there are no answers pre-selected here because we've chosen open-ended answer. And create and add that. And again, you can reorder your questions by choosing up and down. Let's stick with showing this directly after the attendee exits and save. Okay, so those are further additions or changes you can make to your webinar. I've gone back to the My Webinars screen, and again, it gives you a quick summary here. If you want, you can schedule a similar webinar or cancel the webinar, or you can practice or start the webinar. Now it's all set up, and in the next video, we're going to do a practice run.